It's Murder and Mayhem Monday. Welcome back. My name is Franklin James, the serial author, and today I want to talk about a lust killer who murdered her lover, mutilated his body, and dismembered him. Now, this happened 2 years ago on February 22nd in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm talking about Taylor Schabusiness, and as you'll soon find out, ain't no business like Schabusiness. Taylor Schabusiness was born on November 23rd, 1997 in Chicago, Illinois. Her mother's name was Marla Coronado and her father's name is Arturo Coronado. Now, during Taylor's trial, her father took the stand and blamed her fragile state on a few reasons, and one of them was her husband Warren Schabusiness. She married him 4 years ago on Valentine's Day, so one could assume there was some kind of abuse involved during her marriage. Now, her husband, Warren Schabusiness, is also incarcerated. He's serving time in a federal prison for drug charges. Now, she and Warren do have a toddler son together that's staying with her grandparents, and I'm sure it's a more stable environment. I mean, that kid's going to have a really tough upbringing just with the separation from his parents, maybe some abandonment issues, and I'm really hoping that apple falls really far away from the incarcerated tree. Now, Taylor's father believes her mental state has been fragile ever since the death of her mother and then the passing of her brother. Her mother, Marla Coronado, died when Taylor was 11 years old from cirrhosis and alcoholism. Her brother died in a motorcycle accident the same year Taylor killed her lover in 2022. And I believe those deaths had a profound effect on Taylor. I mean, as we know, the death of the loved one could have a significant impact on a child's emotional and behavioral development. It can affect their ability to function in school and in social settings. And it's evident from Taylor's past in childhood that she was having a difficult time coming to terms with her mother's death. She even stated she was receiving mental health treatment in the seventh grade, as well as being diagnosed with ADHD. It was also said that she was later prescribed a mood stabilizer, an antidepressant, and an antipsychotic until she was 18 years old. Truth be told, I think Taylor had a difficult childhood even before the death of her mother. I mean, her family really didn't stay at one particular location for a long period of time, not until they moved back to Wisconsin from Texas. And we know they spent some time in Chicago because that's where she was born. I think she grew up in a tumultuous environment. I think Taylor experienced a lot of emotional and physical abuse. And I can make that determination based on her proclivities and what she did to her lover, Shad Therian. And I think her mother experienced similar circumstances and abuse, and she decided to cope by drinking alcohol. Look, I'm not one to judge, right? I know that people drink for a myriad of reasons, to celebrate, to socialize, to commiserate. But then I know people also drink to drown their sorrows, and to change their mood. And we know alcoholism and mental illness often go hand in hand, which leads me to think about predisposition, right? And that age-old question of nature versus nurture. And I think nature influenced Taylor's actions just as much as nurture. I think she was predisposed to mental illness. I mean, it's evident that she is suffering from some pretty severe mental illnesses. I mean, she even stated that she and her lover, Shad Therian, they were smoking meth, drinking, and taking prescription drugs leading up to what she did to him. And I think these drugs and the alcohol and things like that were reoccurring things in her life. She was using them to cope. But I also think that they were exacerbating her mental illness. In fact, during her trial back in 2023, a psychologist who spoke to her said Taylor told her that she had a thing with Jeffrey Dahmer back in 2022, a person who had been dead 3 years before she was even born. So she's clearly delusional. But the psychologist also stated that Taylor wouldn't know how to act in court, which was evident by her outburst. I mean, she attacked her defense attorney.
Stop it. Stop it.
Taylor Schabusiness is unwell. Now, that psychologist also stated that Taylor is suffering from command hallucinations that cause her to hurt others as well as herself. And from that, I can deduce that she's likely suffering from schizophrenia. And I think the alcohol and the drug use just further exacerbated the disorder. And from how Taylor described her relationship with the victim, Shad Therian, I can deduce that she was a sexual sadist. She enjoyed inflicting pain and receiving it. But it's interesting because there are psychological factors that lead to such behavior, right? Early childhood experiences like neglect, abuse, and trauma can mold and shape a person's attitude toward pleasure and pain. And often people develop sadistic and masochistic tendencies as a coping mechanism or a way to reclaim some sense of control. And for Taylor, I think it was all about control. I think she relished it and found it gratifying. I think those sensations only intensified her sexual encounters, and that's evident from her statement to the police. She said she really enjoyed what she did to the victim. She said her and the victim, Shad Therian, would often use chains to choke one another from time to time as foreplay, which is the new one for me. I've heard of manual strangulation and maybe belts, perhaps rope, but chains, that's intense. Using that to strangle someone, for sexual pleasure. But Taylor also admitted to using chains once again the day Shad Therian was killed. In fact, they used them on one another. She said that he lied face down in bed and she went, and I quote, crazy on him, choking him until he turned purple and started coughing up blood. And she told the police that she really liked it, and I believe her. She then went on to commit necrophilia, and it was noted that she had oral sex and used sex toys on the victim's body for several hours. I know one of the reasons mentally ill individuals commit necrophilia is because the victim is unresisting. There's no rejection. That person can do whatever it is they want now and take control. And for Taylor, like I said before, it was about control. And she told the police she enjoyed sexually assaulting Shad Therian's body. She was truly able to be herself and indulge her desires. And yes, I think the meth, alcohol, and prescription drugs definitely influenced her actions as well as the mental illness that was already present. Now, once she was done sexually assaulting the victim, the next day she began mutilating and dismembering him. And some organs were also being removed, which tells me this was more of a lust killing. And lust murders are homicides where the offender stabs, cuts, pierces, or mutilates the sexual regions or organs of the victim's body. Now, this includes evisceration, peccarism, and displacement of genitalia in both men and women, and often with women defeminizing them by removing their breasts. It's overkill and it's sadistic. And this was a meth fueled lust murder. And that's evident by how the victim's head was in a bucket next to the victim's genitalia. And I'll put a couple of links in the description that explains in great detail what she did to Shad Therian. I mean, it's gruesome, it's graphic, it's horrible. She really enjoyed mutilating his body. But that makes sense because with lust murderers, there's a compulsion and need to act out their fantasies with their victims. And Taylor was finally able to do that once Shad Therian was no longer alive, no longer resisting. She got to do what she wanted, act out her fantasies. Now, I feel like she enjoyed dismembering the victim, but I also feel like it was out of necessity as well. There's something known as defensive dismemberment, and this is when a killer's motives are to conceal the body or dispose of it. It is noted that she put limbs in cardboard boxes, plastic bags, and a tote. Now, there were a couple of limbs in the minivan, which tells me she had a plan and she wanted to move them, right? But then she told the police she got lazy, which is just crazy to me, But it's interesting because she was motivated enough to act out her fantasies, right? To kill Shad Therian, to indulge her desires, but she wasn't too motivated to try to hide evidence or conceal any traces of what she'd done, you know? This is clear evidence of her mental illness. Sadly, Shad Therian's mother comes home and discovers his decapitated head in a bucket. She notifies police. They show up. They arrest Taylor and they visibly see that she still has blood on her. Now, her defense pleaded not guilty by mental illness or defect, which I can see, you know. But at the end of her trial, she was found guilty of first degree murder, third degree sexual assault, and mutilating a corpse. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But recently, this year, she did file an appeal to reverse the court's decision. I don't know about this one, guys. I think there was intent there to a degree, but I feel like the drugs combined with her mental illness, those delusions, definitely influenced her decision making. I don't think she was of sound mind during the act itself. I think she was somewhere else. But once you do things like mutilate and dismember a corpse, tamper with evidence, all bets are off because it looks like you planned it. It looks premeditated. And I know I spoke a lot about her upbringing in childhood, and I did that to provide you guys with some context, not to justify her actions. I wanted to take a peek inside of her mind and show you guys what may have influenced her decision making. Like I said in a previous video, it takes a lot of ingredients to cook up a serial killer or a killer in general, right? I think on the day of February 22nd, 2022, in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Taylor Schabusiness snapped and left mayhem in her wake. But I thank you guys for tuning in. I do ask that you stab that like button and subscribe. Share this video out there. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Taylor Schabusiness. Hit that bell for notifications. Share this video out there. And you guys take care. Be safe.